Welcome, everybody. This is Aida Ingram with Girlfriends with Goals, and I am so excited today to have with us Christina Welsh. She is actually the person who did the screenwriting for this wonderful new movie that is due out on October 10th called Addicted. And boy, this movie, when I remember when I saw the first preview, I was like, whoa, I've got to go see that. This looks awesome. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it's not going to disappoint. So, Christina, first, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you here.
Thanks, Aida. Great to be here.
And please, first of all, I want to tell people about you because I think a lot of people don't get a chance to think about who is behind bringing the movie to the big screen, and turning a story into a screenplay is a big job. It takes a lot of changes because these
Yes.
stories are huge. So you've got to cut them down to bite-sized pieces. So please tell us about yourself.
What would you like to know about that process, or adaptation, or about myself?
Well, first tell us a little bit about you so people can get a sense for you.
Well, I have always known I wanted to be a writer since I was a child. My father was telling me stories one night, and I said, I want to write my own story. He said, well, you have a choice. You can listen to the story I was going to tell you, or you can write your own. And I said, I want to write my own. And my father said, I knew you were going to be a writer then. So that was when I was about 5 or 6, and I just would write little stories. I concentrated mostly on, novels and short stories. And then when I was going into high school, I saw Rocky, and I loved Rocky. And just to be in the audience and see how people responded to this great story and this great writing and this great character, I said, well, I want to write movies. So my father got me into a screenwriting class when I was still 14 years old, and then I studied it later in college. And it just was always something I knew I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to write, and I loved movies, and I thought if I could write a story that could reach so many people, that would be fantastic. So that was when I knew I wanted to write, and I got away from it for a little while. I did some radio work and did a little acting and other things and journalism, but I ultimately got back to the screenwriting and sold a project called If Only, and that's what really launched my screenwriting career in '99 when that sold, and then it was made a few years later.
Wow, and I have to tell my audience, I peeked at the trailer on that, and I'm sorry I didn't see it when it was out, because I was like, oh my gosh, this movie is great. I can't imagine. I'm gonna have to check it out now, and I'm encouraging everybody else to do the same. But what an amazing gift your father gave you.
Yes, he was very, very supportive, believed in my dream. My mother did too. They were both very supportive of me growing up. I had a very happy childhood, which apparently is probably not good for a writer on some level. A lot of writers have these tragic stories they bring into their writing, but I had great parents. I had imagined terrible things happening to people when I'd write fiction sometimes, but they were terrific. They were very supportive of my dream, and my father saw this interest and got me into that class, and the rest, as they say, is history. I mean, it took time. It took me. I graduated college and didn't get into screenwriting right away. Again, went off and did other things, but ultimately, it's what I came back to. I knew it was what I was meant to do.
Isn't that amazing? Now tell me something. What did you study in college?
I studied. I earned 2 degrees. One was in English. I actually taught English comp for a year there when I was doing my master's. I didn't finish my master's, but I was doing a postgraduate studies in English. And I also studied screenwriting. So those were my two fields of study. So it was great. I had a great background in literature because you can draw from all the great classics and the great stories of our time, American literature, English literature, and then use that in your work. And your screenwriting brings some of those classic uh, conceits to your screenwriting work.
That is amazing. I mean, I love the story, and I love your dad kind of inspired you, and the creativity was evident even back then.
Yeah, thank you. It made a difference. It did. It's I can definitely say that my parents, in seeing my abilities and seeing my inclination toward that, encouraging that, and doing what they could to get me down that road, was very, very helpful, instrumental in my becoming a screenwriter.
And I'm
So parents, if you see a talent, encourage it in your child.
Well, you know what else I love about it is that you left and you came back. Because I think
Yes,
sometimes life throws us curveballs and we have this dream, we know there's something inside of us, and then before we know, we're like, well, maybe it's not something I should do, or, I have to sacrifice this. I've got to go to something else. And I think sometimes we have to put things down, but the whole thing is caring about it enough to go back to pick it up.
absolutely. And I think too, we can be discouraged by how tough something is. Like this industry is very, very tough, and I think I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any contacts. It makes it a lot tougher to break in. I went to a conference in '98, spent $300. I didn't really have a lot in the bank at the moment, but I believed in myself and believed in picking up this dream again. And I knew at this writers' conference there would be producers, there would be agents, there would be people I would have exposure to, have access to, could present my ideas and my scripts, hopefully, if they would read them. And that's what really helped me gain connections. I got a manager at that conference, and then I also pitched an idea to a couple of producers who loved it, worked with me on it, and we ended up setting it up at Disney, and that's what got me into the Writers Guild. So because I took a chance by spending the money to go to this conference and have access to people I wouldn't have had access to otherwise, that dream did come true for me.
Wow. And I can't thank you enough for bringing that up because I think sometimes people forget that you have to invest in your dream. If it's something that you really want, you kind of have to make some sacrifices along the way. And sometimes that means going places where you know people who can help you really are and getting the information you need to grow. That is awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it's getting out of your comfort zone, too. It's not, I wasn't back then. I've gotten more used to it with social media, but in terms of being a self-promotional person, just getting out there and saying, hey, here's my work. Hey, I'm not that person by nature. I wasn't born that way. So I think to put myself in a circumstance where I had to approach people and say, hey, I have this great idea for a movie. Hey, I have this script. Hey, I'm looking for this, for that. It was, to put myself in that circumstance was tough for me, but I'm glad I did it. And I've learned to be more assertive about myself. I mean, I think sometimes confidence can hit you at different ages. I was confident as a kid, but then, like you said, I got away from my dream, and I think maybe that took some of that confidence away. But knowing what I wanted to do boosted that confidence and got me back out there again.
Well, too, and one thing you said that I really believe a lot in, and it's we have to get out of this box where we think that it's our project or our work because our project and our work leads to open doors for other people. So it's like you
Hmm.
have this amazing gift of turning a story into a movie and you opened how many actors got employed because you took that chance or because
Right.
you're stepping out on faith about okay, well, this is something I'm really good at. That gift opened doors for other people. So it's like even though you're sharing your gift, it's not really just promoting you, it's promoting an amazing work that opens up doors for other people and really does change lives.
I love that you said that. Such a great and smart observation, because when I was on the set of my first movie, If Only, shot in London in 2002, I was on the set, and I was looking around, and I had this moment of everybody's here, the crew, the cast, everybody's working on this movie because of something that started in my head years ago
Yeah.
that I took a chance on and put it down on paper. And now it's at this point where people are working on it, and then people will be employed on it, people will pay money to see it, and just it's an amazing feeling. Not it's just like you said, you're creating opportunities for others too. You're creating. That's the great thing about writing, is you create your own work opportunities for yourself as well as others if it gets to that point of actually making it on screen.
That
So
is
that's a really interesting observation on your part. That's great.
well,
And a big part of the reward of this.
yeah, it is. And you know what? I'll have to tell you, I can tell you, I could spend hours in the movies. Like my family's like, "Are you going to the
Mm.
movies?" And I'm like, "Of course, I love the movies because you're really telling people stories. You're telling stories, and it's like even when you sit in the seat as someone who's watching, you think that's me, or you start to think about the characters and what would you do, and it's really an exhilarating and cathartic experience.
Yes, it is. It is. Movies are transformative. You go to another place and another. you just get lost in the experience, and it's a wonderful thing. Books can do that too, but movies are so visual. You just can really just be enveloped by the darkened movie theater and the lights going down and the movie coming on. It's just such a great experience.
This is great. Well, tell me something, because one thing you alluded to a little bit as you talked about this project is you started writing this in 2006.
Yes.
And it is 2014. Please
Yes.
tell us about that process.
Yeah, it was an open writing assignment from Lionsgate Studios, and it went out industry-wide, so a lot of agents submitted their writers for the project. Mine submitted me, and based on the strength of my writing sample, I had a thriller that I'd written that the studio really responded to. They called me in for several meetings. So first of all, they sent me the book and to see if I'd be interested. I loved the book. I mean, I read this book. It was funny, and the voice of it is so funny and dramatic and thrilling and exciting and sexy and all these different elements wrapped up into one book, because it's a first-person narrative and Zoe tells her story, and sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's heartbreaking, and it's just a very full, rich human experience to read this book. And it was a 325-page book, so I had to present to the studio, hey, here's my idea for how I would make this a 100-minute movie. It spans 20 years, and you can't, if you wanted to do a TV series, you've got all the time in the world to tell the story, but you want to get to the essence of what's most important without losing too much of what you love. And so they responded to my ideas. Zane, whom I've never met. I'm dying to meet her, but she was always, because she lives back east, she was always a voice on the speakerphone in the center of the conference table. So she would chime in with her thoughts and ideas, and we'd all look at her like, oh, it's E.F. Hutton, one of those moments of oh, it's the important person talking, let's listen, and oh, I hope she liked what I said. So it was just an interesting and fun experience pitching while she was on the phone. The rest of the studio executives and producers were in the room. So they liked what I had to say and hired me. And it was funny because that first week that I was hired, in my contract said I had 12 weeks to come up with that first draft. Wow. That first week, I think I just stared at the book in terror, how am I going to do this? The great news is you've got this job. The scary news is you've got this job. So I, just kind of stare at it and imagine, kind of walk through the house and, okay, here's what I told them I'd do. This is what I've got to do. And then it just started flowing. And it was a challenge because, again, of the length of the book and to make it into a 100-page screenplay. But so that was 2006. Over the next year or two, through 2008, I went through multiple drafts for the studios. They were very supportive. They were excited. But then we had some logistical things come up. We were looking to go into production in 2007, but the writer's strike hit, so that delayed things. And then when we picked the momentum back up after the strike ended in spring of 2008, we're going well for a while, but these things came up and it didn't work out. Timing-wise, these things sometimes take the time they're meant to happen.
Wow.
Grabbing a drink of water. But so it was put aside for a couple of years, but I think as I mentioned previously, Lionsgate definitely buys projects and material to make them. They don't develop a lot. They don't buy 100 projects to make 10 movies. They really love what they buy. So in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I know they love this project. I know they love my work. I hope they pick it up again at some point. And they did. In 2012, they revived the project, and we shot in October of 2012. And here we are 2 years later, the movie's coming out. So it's, like you said, 8 years later. It'll be 8.5 years after I first started on this project, which,
wow.
In Hollywood, it's a miracle to get anything made. So it's still something where I feel like, wow, after 8 years, this suddenly happened overnight. But, it's been an amazing experience.
Wow. And you have to tell me, well, first off, there was something you said, and I'm shocked. Is this book, it was over a 20-year period, so you're giving us a little inside track here about what we can expect. This must be one heck of a movie. I'm listening to this, and I'm like, wow, Zoe is taking us 20 years of her life.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had to cut a lot of the flashbacks. We had some flashbacks early on that I loved, which were when the main character Zoe and her husband Jason, when they meet as kids and they can't stand each other, and then they start to get attracted to each other when they're around 13 years old, and then they're deeply in love by the time they're in seniors in high school. But because of the nature of the movie and they only have so much time to tell a story, it was decided to keep the movie strictly in the present day. So there's a little bit of a flashback, a few moments that are important and crucial to this character's development that we needed to leave in. But other than that, there's some of those great scenes I missed. But I understand you have to do that for time and for telling a story.
Why this? Why this story?
I think it's a compelling story of a very relatable woman. I think people will see this and say, wow, that could be me. She's bright, she's successful, she's a loving wife, she's a great mom, she has a business. I mean, she's living the American dream. And then this addiction overpowers her. She discovers this addiction through her actions. First she cheats on her husband, and then it unleashes this addiction. It becomes more than just having an affair. It's this drug for her that she needs more and more of, that's not satisfied by this one affair. And she risks everything for this drug. And that's what, to me, the meaning of Addicted and the power of the movie is that it shows what can happen when someone goes down that path. And she almost loses everything, family, marriage, work, her life. She risks everything for her drug, and it shows the effect of addiction on loved ones and how, the tragedy can play out for them. And it's a compelling story, I think that, and also what moved me about the book and the story and what I responded to was from the beginning, early on into what she knows she's doing wrong, she seeks help. She's seeking help from a therapist because she knows this isn't normal. She knows this is odd behavior for her, and she feels it out of control. And she's seeking help from someone to help her get back on track, even as she continues to spiral. So it's fascinating from that point of view, too, that she knows that she's doing wrong, and she knows this could cost her everything, and she still goes back for more. It really shows an addiction in full bloom, even as it's an entertaining and sexy and provocative film, but it does have something to say in the end.
And I love story. And even as I looked at the trailer, some of the things that kind of came out to me is that you see Tasha Smith's character kind of saying, you got to stop. And,
yes.
Like, especially for women, it's like you hate to see your girlfriends go down a track that isn't good for them, but you don't know what to do sometimes. And the wonderful thing that you brought out with addiction is, and it speaks to about an addiction we don't talk about very much with women, is sexual addiction, is that all of this stuff is incredibly powerful. And as much as you like to say, just stop it, and you want someone to be able to do that, is that you oftentimes do end up needing support, do end up needing help. And there is nothing wrong with that, but just being able to identify what's needed to assist you when you do fall out of control. Because for some people it's drugs, and then for some people it's sex, for some people it's sugar, for some people it's weight. It's like all kinds of things can really put you in this place, and you do end up giving up way more than you ever thought you would. So tell me a little bit more about, because you did a lot of research on this area. Tell me about what you found out when you did the research.
Well, I found out that a lot of sex addicts do have some sort of molestation or some sort of early sexual introduction in their childhood that leads them down that path. It might be something that's suppressed, it might be something they're aware of, but when sexuality is ingrained early, it sometimes pushes people down that path. It's not that all people who have experienced that become sex addicts, but many sex addicts have that background. I also found out there are also other addictions that often accompany sex addiction: a food addiction, drug addiction, other kind of excessive behaviors, gambling, because I think sexual behavior is seen as very, risk-taking. You're hooking up with strangers a lot of times, people you don't know, and you're putting your life at risk in a lot of ways. So there's that sort of risk-taking behavior that drives people to all kinds of other addictions as well. So sometimes it's accompanied by those others as well. And I don't want to give too much away in terms of what drives Zoe to her addiction, but it was a fascinating thing to read, and the book did a great job of having some of those answers as well. I mean, Zane presented a very complete portrait of a woman and why she goes down this path and how she discovers what drove her to it and how she gets help and ultimately gets better.
I mean, I'm just thankful for, sometimes the conversation by itself. I'm hoping in groups will go, because there is a slippery slope between, one decision really can change your life. I think this would be a great girlfriend movie, and I'm hoping that people will go out during this a very important first weekend, because I know that a lot of times studios will determine how many more theaters they put a movie in based on weekend sales.
Mm-hmm.
And, these stories aren't told often enough. These people who have it all together, and just the diversity too of the cast. I love,
Absolutely.
and just to be able to hear more stories about women just like us who, make some decisions and all of a sudden they need more help. And that's okay. But if
Yeah.
we open up a door to some incredible dialogue, which I think we need to have more often, instead of shutting the door and kind of saying, we're not going to talk about that. That's off the table because we don't want to talk sex. But if
Right.
something that somebody is experiencing, if you don't start having this dialogue and conversation now, when it happens to someone you have no idea where to go.
Right. So you're right. We're kind of a repressed country when it comes to sex. We're happy to go watch our violent movies and see people's heads blown off, but sex kind of makes us a little uptight. So it's interesting, and especially I think what's you brought up earlier, which is compelling, is that this is a female sex addict. We're sort of used to thinking of men as sexual beings, and so it's a really interesting flip side of this issue of the sex addiction to see a woman battling it. There was a terrific movie called Shame. Michael Fassbender played a sex addict a few years ago. So it's just I'm proud and excited to be part of a movie that tells the other story, tells the woman's story. And as you mentioned, a diverse cast. It's a woman's story. These are not things you see on movies all the time. We've got so many kind of the big sequels and comic book movies. So to see a kind of a grown-up film released by a major studio with this issue, with a diverse cast, a woman's story, and some other strong female characters in this movie, it's terrific. There's, in addition to this, like you mentioned, Tasha Smith, there's Dr. Spencer, who's helping her through this problem and saying, you've got to stop this, you've got to get control of this. There's also her mother, played by Maria Howell, who knows something's up with her daughter. She knows something's going on, and she's reaching out to her daughter and trying to get her to confide in her. She's got a best friend, Brina, who works with her, who is concerned, who knows, sees the work starting to slide, sees the attention to her business starting to slide, and is worried that, geez, this successful woman is employing me, she's employing all these people around us, and this business is going to go down the tubes if she continues on this path. So it's a compelling story. It shows kind of what people can lose, even in the process of trying to get help. It's an overpowering thing, these addictions.
They are, and they're so powerful. And the challenging thing about a lot of the addictions, which I think people often forget, is that people look just like me and you. They
Yeah,
look regular, like in the area that a lot of people struggle with is, why can't they just get themselves together? They don't realize it's something so much larger than what people believe, and we judge each other too much, especially women, where
yeah, absolutely.
you don't cut anybody slack. You don't ever know what somebody's life has been like. All you know is what you see. And I love this movie without even seeing it for so many different reasons, because there's this whole idea is that she looks like she has it all, and what looks like it all to you may not be everything to the other person, and you don't know the struggles that people have, when they close their doors at night. So just even
Hmm.
sending a little bit more grace to people when they're going through the process of life, because none of us is perfect. Any of us could make a bad choice that could put us someplace we never thought we'd be. And
Yeah,
love this story. I love this, and I'm thankful for you to have done it, because I think, like I said, dialogue changes lives.
yeah. All thanks to Zane for writing a great book and getting that started years ago. And and giving us that blueprint for the movie. And I'll mention Sharon Leal, who does a terrific job as Zoe. She makes her this very relatable person. She's sweet, she's loving, she's kind, she's successful, she's all these things that we would want to be. And everybody would look at that and say, wow, I want that life with the gorgeous, supportive, loving husband and the cute kids and the successful business and the beautiful house. And it does become this, why would she throw that away? But then you realize that it is this addiction, and it's a fascinating conversation.
Wonderful. Well, you know what? We didn't touch on this at all, as much as I think we should. You are in a very male-dominated field.
Yes.
Please tell me what that's like for women, because I think oftentimes we don't know, because we're not in the field, what it's really like to be in a male-dominated field, and how you're able to excel and what kind of support you have out there, and even how we as women who aren't in that field can support you.
Yes, well, interestingly enough, I mean, it's not just a feeling you can have that, wow, it's a male-dominated field. The Celluloid Ceiling put out a report that in 2013, only 10% of the top 250 films that year, and that would include a movie that's made $2 million at the box office, but of the top 250 films in 2013, only 10% were written by women, and we're, 51% of the population, so it's, it'd be nice to get absolute parity. You don't know if that would ever happen, but, I mean, 10% is crazy, and that was down from an already paltry 15% in 2012, so it's very real. It's something that's discussed, but then you say, okay, that's a statistic. That's very real. So you can feel it, and then you can look at something that's factual and say, wow, okay, that reflects the fact that there aren't enough female voices in films. So I mean, for myself, I've just kind of taken my steps forward and gotten my stories out there, and so I don't know that I've experienced, it's tough as a female screenwriter going up against male writers, but I think the choices of the movies they make, whether it's the comic book movies that they don't think women would want to write or other big action movies, makes it harder for women to get in there. It's the stories that are told that makes it tougher. So that's why I'm so excited that Addicted made it to the big screen, because that is a woman's story. It's, and that's, I'd like to see more of that. And I think that's where we can change things. If more of those stories get out there, then more women are able to tell them.
And I think it also gives us an opportunity to control how we're seen, because I think especially for young women, I am so challenged by the images that they constantly see on film and in media about these women. They're not powerful, they're cute, they're the imaging is just an issue for me, and I wish that we could tell a story about so many other types of women, because I think women are, we run the gamut, and there isn't any one person that represents women everywhere. It's, it's the woman who does construction work, it's the woman who works in IT, it's the woman who writes the screenplay, it's the actor. There's so many different opportunities for us, and we just kind of get pegged into this one or two kind of character portrait, and I think it stops young girls from thinking bigger.
Yeah. Well, Gina Davis had a project. I probably won't. She had a project with her foundation. I probably won't, explain it as well as it should be explained. But she was challenging writers to include more women in their screenplays. For example, let's say I'm writing a scene about two cops that show up at the door. Well, write down that one of them is a woman. Two cops show up at the store, a male and a female. Just even that little bit. If a young girl goes to a movie and she sees, okay, it's just all men. Okay, it's a man. It's a male plumber showing up, like you mentioned. It's the male IT guy showing up. Well, what if a girl is just sitting there, and it's not a big deal is made of it, but the female IT person comes in and fixes the computer, or they're in the background doing their work. It's just the images that pop into your head of like, okay, that's normal. A woman out there is doing that job. That's a normal thing. Women are participating, or there's a woman teacher, there's a female lawyer, there's a female cop with her male partner, or maybe her female partner. So it's getting those images so that people just automatically think of, yeah, women are 50% of the world, and we do we're out there doing the jobs that men are doing too, and we're right there with them. So I think that's very important, to make sure that you do include those images when you write. That's what I look to do as well. And that's, again, that's why I'm so excited. I think you mentioning certain types of female characters and certain images, I think what's great about Addicted is that, in so many movies, unlike Addicted, the women kind of react to things. They're the girlfriend, or they're watching the hero do his work, and they'll be there for him in the end when he's done saving the world. But in Addicted, the woman drives the action. Everything she does impacts everybody around her. She is the driving force of that movie, and for good or bad, for good and bad throughout the film. So that's what's compelling to me, is that this female character is the one that every bit of action that happens in this movie is because of choices she makes. And that's interesting. It's not like she's waiting for something to happen at the end that she can react to.
And one thing I'm so thankful that we had this conversation. I had a chance to do some research as well. Is that I'm gonna actually encourage some of my friends and associates who work in the mental health field to encourage some of their patients, but also to encourage some of the folks in their circles to check this out, because I think it's a great way to get this dialogue going. I love this project. I am so thankful you wrote it. I'm thankful we had a chance to talk and just to hear
thank you.
more about your heart with film. And are you going to tell us what your next project is, or are we going to have to wait and watch?
Well, a couple of things. I've just finished a thriller myself, a bit of an erotic thriller, similar to Addicted, not in the subject matter, but just in that world, a kind of mysterious romance, love story, sexy thriller. That's about to make the rounds in Hollywood. There has been some foreign language remake interest in If Only, and I'm exploring that because I think it would be great to see that in another country in another language. And I'm developing a pitch, a TV pitch, because TV is a great world to be in. That's where writers are really celebrated, and a lot of great adult stories are told on TV these days. So many great series and great shows are on TV. So I'm working on a pitch with a director right now that we're going to hopefully take out, and so just keeping busy.
Okay, and before we leave, give us a couple words that you would want to share with women in relation to the film, but also, just some of the lessons you've learned.
Just in life and in
takeaways, you get to choose.
Well, I'd mentioned the that content, kind of getting out of my comfort zone. I would say to women, we're seen a certain way, or people expect certain things of women. Get out of your comfort zone. If assert yourself, go out and pursue your dream. Be confident. Don't hang back and wait for someone's approval. There's a great campaign, a commercial. I don't know what product it is, but it shows a fault. I'm going to apologize. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, could I ask you about this? Oh, excuse me, sorry, pardon me. And there's just sort of this apologetic way that we have of like, well, I don't want to intrude. Sorry, I'm just a woman that wants to say something. Is that okay? And I think, it doesn't have to be the opposite where we, knock down doors and put people in the face, but it's just, there's got to be that moment of confidence of saying, no, I don't have to apologize. This is my opinion, or this is what I'd like to do. So I don't have to say, I'm sorry. Could I explain my idea? You just say, well, here's something I'd like to explain to you, or here's an idea I have. What do you think of this? It's just, it's again, as far as images on screen, seeing the woman in the background as the IT person, the doctor, the teacher, the lawyer. It's also how we present ourselves, how we see ourselves. Don't go forward saying, oh, sorry, pardon me, but just say, no, here I am. This is an idea I have, and I'd like you to hear it and tell me what you think.
That is amazing, and thank you so much. I mean, like I said, this is great. If you have anything else coming up, you be sure to check in with us. I'm hoping that we can get a whole bunch of folks out to go see Addicted. The weekend it opens on 10/10. Bring a girlfriend, bring a friend, bring your husband. It's
yes.
Because it kind of even goes into when you have infidelity, how are you dealing with it? And
right.
If only I wouldn't, but you never know what you would do. So you are a rock star, Christina. I so appreciate.
Oh, thank you, Aida. You're a sweetheart. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Same here, and we'll be looking out
yes.
for film and all your other projects. And we're going to check out If Only, because I now have to go check out that film. I can't believe I missed it.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to hear what you think of it. And yeah, let's get all those people in the seats for opening weekend. That's a crucial movie. And it's interesting, you know, not only because of the theaters they might expand to because of that, but also the types of movies they make. So if they say, wow, a movie with a diverse cast, a woman's story, it did well, we want more of that. I mean, Hollywood is all about the bottom line. It's all about the dollar. If this makes money, they'll want to make more of these. So that's why it's important for people to get out there opening weekend, for sure.
So much, and I will definitely push up because I know I've seen it. I've seen it. They watch the trailers and they say, "Wow, well, they didn't respond to that. I don't know. Push it back."
Yes. Well, great, Aida. Thank you so much for your support and for this great conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. Have a great day, Christina.